Tonight, we are going to look at the idea of negativity. Last time we looked at criticism, which I'm making a distinction between criticism and negativity. Criticism is often lumped in with negativity, but proper criticism is reproof, correction, rebuke. It's actually telling us what we need to change in order to improve or correct something that we're doing wrong. But negativity is a different type of thing. When we talk about negativity, I don't have a great definition of it, but it's basically the idea of thinking about someone or a situation as worse than it really is, and it includes the feelings and the actions that go along with that way of thinking. Or we could just say it's thinking about bad things more than good things. When you're dwelling on what's bad rather than on what is good, you are thinking in a negative way. One way to think about this biblically is to think about negativity as being almost equivalent to grumbling or complaining. And so that it's a similar type of idea. When we talk about negativity, we could talk about other people being negative toward us, as we talked about criticism, being criticized. Well, what about when people are negative toward us? If we make a mistake, maybe that's the only thing they ever think about. When they think about us, oh yeah, that's the person that did this stupid thing or whatever, and they just treat us like that all the time. That's the only thing that they know about us, and they fail to see anything good about us or recognize that we've changed or that we even can change from doing what was wrong in the past. They just view us negatively. And some words that they may use that could demonstrate that are things like, oh, you're just worthless, or you'll never amount to anything, or why do you always, do this wrong, or, open your mouth when you shouldn't, or why do you always anything? Pretty much, why do you always is going to be a negative statement. Or even if you say, why do you never, right? That's another negative type of speech. And so when we talk about criticism, you're telling them something helpful, what they did wrong so they can do something better. Now, criticism isn't always correct, but at least it's something we can evaluate, think about, and see if it is something we need to change. But negativity is not helpful. It's just bad feelings being expressed. It's not actually telling us what to change. It's not telling us something helpful. It's just negative feelings being expressed. But we can, obviously, if others can be negative towards us, we can be negative towards other people as well. And so the same things that we just talked about apply from our side. It may be that we only think about the bad things about someone, and maybe we don't recognize when someone has changed or that they have the potential to change. We just think badly about them. We may use those similar types of wording, and if you catch yourself using that wording, realize you are not being helpful. You are just expressing bad feelings, which is not a helpful thing. It's not going to help them change. It's not actual criticism. And when we're talking about this idea of negativity, it may be that we're not negative towards others so much, but we may be negative towards ourselves. So it may be that we think about ourselves based on the bad things we've done, the mistakes we've made. We may not recognize that we have changed or grown since something, or that we can change. We don't see our own potential. We may say to ourselves things like, I'm worthless, or I'm stupid, I'll never amount to anything. Why do I always? That's, again, not helpful. Self-criticism can be helpful. Telling ourselves, oh, you did this wrong, this is what you should have done. Next time, do this. That's fine. That's not a bad thing at all. That's a good thing. But when we just express negative feelings to ourselves, it's not helpful. It actually can keep us from growing. It can keep us from doing what we should do in the future because we're telling ourselves we're not even capable of doing what's good sometimes. So we need to be careful with negative thoughts. So how can we deal with others when they're negative toward us? In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, in verses 1 through 4, Paul writes this, "Let a man so consider us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. But with me, it is a very small thing that I should be judged by you or by a human court. In fact, I do not even judge myself. For I know of nothing against myself, yet I am not justified by this. But he who judges me is the Lord." So Paul says, it's fine for you to evaluate me, but honestly, I don't care much about that. It's a small thing to me to be judged by you, or even a court. I don't care what they decide. It doesn't even matter what I think about myself. The one who judges me is the Lord. It's his judgment that matters and his only. If someone thinks I'm worthless, I don't care. If someone thinks I'm a failure, I don't care. What I care is what does the Lord think about me. And so we need to remember that the one who gives us our worth is God, and he's our judge. And so what other people think about us should not really be that important to us. It's not that we don't care at all, but it is the idea that if God thinks something different than what those people think, then what they think doesn't matter. What other people think only matters in as much as it may help us, think about what does God actually think about what we're doing and how we're living the life that he made us to live. But because he's the one who gives us our worth, it's his opinion, which is truth, that actually matters. In James chapter 2, in verses 1 through 5, James talks here about when a poor man comes into the assembly and a rich man comes into the assembly. And with the rich man, they say, oh, you take this good seat. And with the poor man, you tell him, sit here at my footstool or stand over there. And in verse 4, he says, have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brethren, has God not chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? So here come in these two different people, and they have positive thinking towards the rich man. Oh, he must be worth something. He's important. And the poor man comes in dirty clothes, filthy clothes. And you say, well, if he's dressed like that, he can't be worth anything in this world. He's not worth anything to us. You just stand over there. And he says that's not how God views it. He has chosen the poor to be rich in faith. God does not make evaluations like we do. And so it may be that someone is negative towards us, thinking that we're worthless because of these external things like filthy clothing, or we don't have shoes, or maybe we can't speak very well, or whatever it may be. But he says that is judging with evil thoughts or evil motives. And so we need to recognize and remember that sometimes the negativity that people can show comes from bad motives. And it really doesn't have anything to do with us or how much we're worth or what we are capable of or anything like that. It can just be bad motives that, coming from a wrong way of thinking. And so we need to just recognize that and dismiss that type of negativity when it's directed towards us, or when it's directed towards someone else, actually. But how can we then deal with our own negative attitudes? And let's talk first about our attitude towards others. If we're having this way of negative thinking towards others, well, the same passages we just read apply to us as well. We need to check our motives. Why are you being so negative towards someone? Are you looking at how clean they are, how poor they are, how educated they are, anything like that? None of that matters as far as their worth to God is concerned. We need to recognize what is our motive in how we're dealing with people, how we're thinking about them, how we're talking about them. Jesus died to save them just as much as he died to save you. They are worth as much as you are in the sight of God. And you're not their judge. You're not the one who gets to decide. I'm not saying we can't be looking at what God's judgment is when it comes to sin. That's not the point. The point is we're not the judge. It's not our opinion that makes any difference whatsoever. And we don't need to try to be the judge. We need to view them as worth something, not because we evaluate them worth something, but because God does. And that's much more important than our opinion. So let's put away our negativity towards them, realize they're worth just as much as we are or anyone else. They can do what's right. They can do good. They can change. The gospel is for them too, whoever they are. And let's try to keep negative thoughts towards them out of our thinking. In James chapter 4, in verses 11 and 12, he says, "Do not speak evil of one another, brethren. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge another?" And so we cannot be judging based on our own thinking. We can't be saying, you are because you don't fit what I view as proper, because you don't dress in the nice way that I think people should dress. If you don't speak in an educated way, well, clearly you're just not worth anything. And he says that's judging the law. If Christ didn't say it, then who are you to say it? You need to back up and realize that's not your place. Let's put away that negative thinking and just look at what Christ said and help our brethren out of love and respect to know what Christ has said and to do those things, as we also must be doing rather than just judging. In James 5, in verses 8 and 9, he says, "You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door." He says when we grumble against one another, we can be condemned for it. It's sinful. And I want us to get this really clearly here, that having negativity, not valid criticism, not pointing out this is what Christ has said and here's what you're doing and they're not the same thing. Here's what you need to change. That's not grumbling. But when you grumble, when you're just they never get to church on time, they never do what they're supposed to do, I can't understand them, they're just dumb, they just can't get it. That type of thinking, that's grumbling, is sinful. And I've been guilty of that, at least in my own mind, probably with my mouth as well. We need to really check ourselves because it's sinful. We can be condemned for that. We must put that away from ourselves. I'm going to stop there. And I think next time we'll continue with the next part, which is how can we deal with our negative attitudes towards ourselves. And we may be dealing with some other ideas about grumbling and how to deal with that negativity in ourselves next time, Lord willing. Thank you very much.